Hello YouTube, welcome back to another video. So, if you couldn't tell by reading the title and thumbnail, I recently beat Persona 5 Royal, and it is my first experience playing an Atlas game. So I wanted to do this video a little bit differently. In front of me, I have like a huge doc of just notes. Typically when I make these type of videos, i.e. like when I did the Deltarune video, I just kind of just talk. With this game in particular, I felt like I wanted to try something new, so as soon as I beat the game, I wrote down an entire list of notes so I don't forget too many things, which knowing me, I'm still gonna forget some stuff. Forgive me if I make some type of like mistakes with names or just misremembering certain parts of the story. I don't even know how to continue entering this, so yeah, let's get into the video. So my initial thoughts on the game, as I mentioned literally 2 seconds ago, is that I've never played a Persona game or an Atlas game period before. However, the only things I had to go off of for this game is that I've actually been a big fan of the music in Persona for a couple of years now. Now granted, I haven't listened to that much of the music. Most of the music that I listened to from Persona prior to playing the game was No More What Ifs and Tokyo Daylight. And I also listened to a bunch of the Smash remixes because that, shockingly, is actually how I was introduced to the franchise. Like not most, but like a lot of people, I actually hadn't heard of the Persona franchise until Joker was announced as a DLC character for Smash Ultimate, like 5-6 years ago at this point, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, that's kind of how I was introduced. So I listened to a bunch of the Smash remixes, and that kind of led me to listening to music from Persona 5. I think there was like one song for Persona 3 that I was listening to. That's how I also ran into songs like School Days from the original Persona. I know there's another song, but like I can't remember it right now. But point is, Smash is my entryway into Persona, even though I technically didn't play a game for several years after. I bought Persona 5 recently just because it was during Golden. The game was on sale, which according to a lot of my friends, Persona games and just Atlas games in general are notorious for constantly being on sale, which to me, you know, trust me, in this economy, I'm not complaining. So I managed to get, I think I bought Persona 5 Royal, I think for like 20-25 bucks instead of like 60, and I think I also got Reload for I think like 30, which compared to their original prices is a steal. Like, remember, I'm a Nintendo fan, so paying $50 and getting 2 games that are probably like 200 hours combined of gameplay. Again, I don't know what Reload's length is like, but yeah, it's something. Actually, speaking of the length of the game, I knew this game will have a lot of content. The base game, meaning everything outside of the third semester, I think the game took me about 100 hours to make it to the, I guess, normal ending. If you include the third semester, it came up to around 120. Trust me, I am not complaining. I feel like I got my money's worth. Especially since I got this game on sale, I definitely feel like I got my money's worth, so I'm not complaining about the length. I guess my last initial thought is like all I really knew about Persona was just the memes. You know, there's like the looking cool Joker that Morgana says in Smash. I don't actually remember if he says it in the game or if they just made him say it for Smash, but that was a meme everywhere. You'll never see it coming from Last Surprise. And then like a few other memes. Like I know people were constantly going for reals, like quoting Ryuji, and that's really all I had to go off for the base game. So now, when it comes to this game's story, I will admit that the first couple of hours, which is what I mean by that is prior to actually starting the countdown for Kamoshida's palace, it was engaging because I could tell it was definitely there for world building, but it was also really restrictive in terms of like I'm fine with it now, but like looking back, it was a little boring because the gameplay during that wasn't really gameplay. It was just cutscene, dialogue, walk from location A to B, dialogue, walk from B to C, dialogue, walk back to A, dialogue, and you just did that for, I would say, 2 to 3 hours of gameplay. It wasn't a long time. The very beginning was very slow, but you know, I'm not complaining that much. Another thing I also put is I just wanted to be goofy, so I named Joker in my playthrough. I named Joker Jamster Hamster, and I also called the Phantom Thieves Subway Rats. I wanted to put New York Subway Rats because, you know, shout out NYC, but it wouldn't let me put that, so I just put Subway Rats. And it worked out just fine. I think that the overall Phantom Thieves as a concept is really cool. Their whole point is that they're a vigilante group, so I do like that the game constantly puts, as much as like their whole point is them doing good, it is interesting to see the game put up the Phantom Thieves as kind of like this like how the public views the Phantom Thieves as these like morally gray vigilantes as opposed to like a justice group, which is, you know, I like that they kind of didn't just make them these perfect heroes. They were questioned all the time, especially by characters like Akechi and Sai all the time, which, you know, I'll get into them too. That was good. I also found it really funny how they had like that popularity bar in the bottom right, because it's really funny because as the Phantom Thieves were more niche, like you had nicer comments, and I love how as soon as they started to blow up and really gain popularity, you just saw so many troll comments in the corner that were just clearly just benign and just trying to get attention, which it's really funny seeing that, especially knowing how social media has gotten. I mean, social media was already big when this game came out, but like now like post-pandemic social media has just like, it's just kind of funny to see how much people really do want to build you up, and as soon as you're up there, they just immediately were so quick to try and take them down. It's so funny. I will also say that despite how long this game was, I was engaged with the story all throughout. Even with that beginning part not really having too much gameplay, I was really interested in the story and all of the characters, and the characters I'll get into in a little bit. Now, another thing I wanted to quickly touch on is that I actually was unaware that this game spoke on so many serious topics. You know, I'm more than okay with playing games and watching people play games that speak on serious topics. Like, I guess a random example is like, despite not liking psychological horror, I actually watched a couple of playthroughs of people playing games like Mouthwashing, which it's a really good game. I'm too scared to play it, but the story and the topics that they discussed were spot on. I respected it. But yeah, I wrote a small list of things I noticed while I was playing the game, which I could be wrong, or I could be wrong or missing things, but the things I noticed included talking about I do like that each palace had its own unique story, respective of its ruler. And while I will admit I didn't enjoy all palaces equally in terms of their gameplay, I do respect what they do for the theming of the game and the characters. Kamoshida is like probably like the first and probably like the most notable, because he really set the tone for what an evil character, like he set the tone for me as a player as to like, oh shit, this is the type of person, like, these are the type of people that me and my team will be dealing with. He set a really good precedent, so I'll give the game props for that. Madarame was pretty okay. Like, I feel like to me, Madarame, Kaneshiro, and Okumura kind of they were as villains, they were still evil in their own retrospects, but as characters, they were just I wasn't as threatened, I guess, as I was with like Kamoshida. It's kind of funny, like I feel like the actual like threat of these people kind of had this weird like bell curve almost, where it started with Kamoshida and then it kind of dipped downwards with like Madarame and Kaneshiro and Okumura, and then it shot right back up with Sai and then Bushido and then Maruki at the very end. Overall, they weren't bad, but you know, I still like them. Also, I'm not gonna lie, I did also put a little comment in here talking about how, in my personal opinion, it's kind of funny how Shido's supporters kind of remind me of supporters of a certain political figure that runs the US right now, but you know, I'll leave that interpretation up to you guys. I also wrote that despite the serious tone of Maruki's palace, I really liked the ending. The ending was pretty wholesome. I didn't really expect like this. I don't know what I was expecting towards the end of the game. I just kind of knew some of the characters, so I didn't know how the game tied the bow on everything, but I think they did a pretty good job, and I was personally happy with it. So I also made a little like tier list of a lot of the characters. Alright, looking back at some of these, I feel like I changed them a little bit, but not that much. I'm just gonna say them out loud and just like quickly summarize a lot of them. So in D tier, the very last place character is the SIU director. He was just kind of like the villain of all time. And it's like, I get what his purpose was for the story, but every time he showed up on screen, I was just not, like, I wouldn't say I was disengaged, because, you know, I was engaged for the story, but his character as a standalone was just not that interesting to me. I didn't really care for what he did. And the thing is, it's crazy because he just ended up dying and nobody really did anything about it. So I guess the game felt the same way too. So then next we have Okumura, Kaneshiro, and Madarame. They kind of just did the same purpose. The only reason why they're slightly better than the SIU director is just because Okumura propped up Haru, Kaneshiro propped up Makoto, and Madarame propped up Yusuke, and that's really the only purpose the three of them serve. So that's kind of it. And then the last character I have in D tier is Oya, the journalist. I genuinely thought she was just like a one-off character for like Madarame's palace, and I was just like, oh, this is cool. We have like this local journalist who is gonna help us out on this case, and that's cool and all. But like after that, I didn't know she would actually become like, a character you can bond with. And after finding out that her confidant is just not really all that great, and also like her dialogue and just her overall bond is so ass. Her whole bit is that she's just drunk all the time. She basically is one of those people that just works during the day and just gets drunk at night every night, and it's like such a boring life. But you know, maybe it's just me. So moving on to C tier, the next person I put up here is Jose. And before y'all go in the comments saying, oh, it's pronounced Jose, nobody that I've ever seen in my entire life with their name spelled like that walks up and says their name is Jose. So as I was saying, Jose was still an interesting. His Mementos boost went crazy, and that's the only thing that's putting him in C tier. So next up I put Shiho, and the reason why I put Shiho is because I actually found her character pretty compelling. I just think it kind of sucks that from the game's perspective, she mostly played an important role purely during Kamoshida's palace, and then the game just kind of dropped her off the face of the earth. No pun intended. I don't know. I kind of wish the game did a little bit more with Shiho, and I don't even think they needed to make her like a phantom thief. They could have just made her like a character we could see more often. But to be fair, for someone like me who maxed out the bond with a lot of my characters, you learn that when you bond with you learn that Shiho basically says, yeah, she's transferring schools, which at the time I was like, that kind of sucks. But at the same time, would you want to return to the school that put so much trauma in you to the point where you tried to jump off of a building? I don't think so. I can't really hold that against her. Next up I have Futaba's mom, aka Wakaba. Similar to Shiho, she just kind of only played an important role for Futaba, and then after that just kind of fell off the face of the earth to just never come back. I think she had a little bit of stuff going on in the third semester, but like that's really it. I like her shadow design as well. Like I like the little like that Sphinx beast thing and whatever. I thought it was. And then next up I put Principal Kobayakawa. I don't want to mess up his name. Kobayakawa. He's very similar to Kaneshiro because his main purpose was kind of just, to me, his main purpose was kind of colluding with Kamoshida as well as propping up Makoto. And I just thought his design was just funny. He's so rotund, it just made no sense. So that's the only thing that's really putting him in C tier. Next up, I guess is like a duo. I put Shinya and Yoshida because they're similar characters to where like their bonds weren't that interesting to me, in my personal opinion. Their abilities were cool, and that's literally it. I will say Yoshida's was better than Shinya's, but like not by that much, in my opinion. He didn't do that much for me. So first up in B tier is Sai. Now, the first thing I wanted to put was that Sai, I don't know why I got this reference. I guess it's because of the movie that came out, but she just kind of reminds me of Nami from Lilo and Stitch in the sense of like, she's kind of like the big sister that has to just raise the family. And by family, I mean her younger sister by herself, because you know, that's just how life turned out. That crash out that she had on Makoto while they were eating dinner, to me is still one of like the most, not the most insane crash out, but it's one of the most unexpected crash outs I've ever seen playing a video game. I genuinely don't know what, I guess like just hearing her father mentioned or something, I guess she just kind of boiled over, because I understand looking back at it, you know, it's that stress, right? She's this hardworking woman who had to do everything on her own, and now she's kind of just stuck raising her sister. She never really had time to kind of be social or do anything except just work. So in that sense, I guess her anger is there, but like that crash out was just so, I don't know, it was a lot, you know what I mean? I guess she did kind of turn around, especially after her palace. She had an amazing shadow design for that palace. Jesus Christ. It wasn't really until like the very end of the game and the third semester where I kind of found her a more likable character, but you know, it's, to me, I think she's just kind of like middle of the pack. She wasn't a bad character by the end, but she wasn't somebody I was like, oh my god, Sai is here. I wasn't like cheering for her, like I wasn't like that passionate. Next up is Mishima, or as I've nicknamed him, Mishimid, and make sure to always put emphasis on the mid, because that's exactly where he sits. His ability's cool, but at the end of the day, my guy acts too much like he's one of the besties, and my guy, you are the manager, you are a Reddit manager. Just calm down. Next, I put Chihaya for something where I said, her ability is godlike. She basically helped cheat my way through bonding with everybody. She makes bonding 10 times easier. Other than that, I didn't care that much for her arc, for one, and two, she was kind of freaky. I ain't gonna hold you. I still remember when one of the dialogue options, I think it's one of the dialogue options where you can choose to either romance her or not. She brought up if Joker was interested in older women, which to ask a high schooler is weird. But next up, I kind of wanted to put Takemi and EY in like the same duo space in B tier, where most of them, like Takemi, I kind of like, she kind of just reminded me of like the Hot Topic girl kind of aesthetic, which, you know, I don't hate. Her arc was fine. I think her shop was cool. And on EY's side of things, I thought of him like similar. His character design was just alright. His character design was okay. His story was okay, but obviously, you know, he's the gunsman. So now Hifumi is a character that I put in B tier, and funnily enough, despite how average she is, she's actually the character that I ended up choosing as Joker's partner for the end of the game. And the reason why is because when I first interacted with her, she acts like a Yu-Gi-Oh protagonist. Like, when she's playing shogi, she is so aggressive and so into it. It was some of the funniest shit ever. She was so dramatic about it, and it's like, I'm not like insulting her for that. I just thought it was just so funny that I was like, you know what, Joker, this is your future girlfriend. And that's kind of just how I played the game. She's normally very calm, reserved, and quiet, but when she's into shogi, she is like this bully, basically. And I just thought that was just a funny parallel, so that's where she goes. Yusuke is my least favorite of the Phantom Thieves, and that's not even to say he was like a bad character. Again, he's in B tier, and I just thought he was like okay, and that's really it. I didn't really like him a lot in the beginning because he just kind of gave me that like weird pervert energy, which they kind of kept a little bit throughout the game, but they kind of lowered it a bit because they had to make way for his other bit, which is that he is constantly broke because he was constantly making poor financial decisions. I didn't really care too much for his bits. His whole thing was just basically either being a weird perv or just being a brokey, which sometimes it was funny, sometimes a lot of the times it wasn't. Sometimes it was kind of funny, and yeah. Also, his ability was just okay. The skill cards are weird because as much as I learned about them, I used them, I kid you not, maybe like a small handful of times when I initially learned about them, and then I just stopped using them because it's like I just didn't feel like I needed to keep using them. So yeah. Next up is Kasumi slash Sumire. I guess I should just call her Kasumi slash Sumire because technically it's, you know what I'm saying. We'll just call her Sumire. Y'all, you'll know, whoever's played the game, you know what I'm talking about. Now, she was my second least favorite of the Phantom Thieves. Her plot twist was insane, and that I will give her credit for. Her plot twist was crazy. I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention, but I had no idea that plot twist was on there. I had no idea. I genuinely thought she was just Kasumi until that was revealed. Kasumi, especially in the beginning, I just thought she was like too preppy. She kind of reminded me of like the perfect girl, kind of like the perfect girl trope that a lot of like shows and games kind of do, and it's like I didn't really care for that as much. So yeah, again, she wasn't a bad character. I just thought she was okay. Also, I never put this, but I should also note, it kind of sucks that for both her and Akechi, I hate that they didn't really become perma members until so late in the game. Sumire wasn't even bad, but by the time she was on my party, Joker could do everything she could but better. Which you could say that about all of them, but like she didn't really have anything to me that was like super crazy exceptional. So in the first people I want to put in A tier are Kamoshida and Shido for the same reason, which is that they were terrible people, but they were some of the best antagonists I've ever seen in a game like this. I have to give them flowers because for Kamoshida and for Shido, you can really tell that like they were just evil people with no redeeming qualities. But for me as a player, it helped me stay invested because when you see Kamoshida's mission and you see how he acted towards Mishima, towards An, towards Shiho, towards Ryuji even, you look at Kamoshida and you're like, this guy is disgusting. We need to take him down. And I actually like that literally motivated me to do his palace in like one sitting. Same with Shido. I did his palace, I think, in one sitting, 1 or 2 sittings, you know. gotta give him credit where it's due. Justine, Caroline, and Lavenza, since the three of them are kind of like the same, one and the same, I guess. Well, I guess Justine and Caroline are Lavenza, so they were gonna get the same rating. To me, they were surprisingly interesting as characters. They kind of just reminded me of like pseudo younger siblings, which I thought was kind of cute. I think another thing was also just Lavenza as a character was relatively interesting because something I didn't realize that this tier list didn't include Igor. I guess I would also put Igor up here in A tier. I'm not gonna lie to you, them revealing that the true Igor had a different voice, I just thought he was meant to sound that raspy and muffled. But when they revealed his actual voice, I was like, that's crazy. That was a really good place to try and set up for a reveal like that. I think the next person that I put up was Kawakami, which the reason why I put her up in A tier is because she was a surprisingly good character, which her bond at the very start with the whole maid thing was really weird, especially in the beginning. But like, I don't know, it kind of worked. Like, it made sense for her character that she basically just wanted this redemption. And I initially took it as like, this is them trying to talk about, I kind of interpreted it in the beginning as a way of bringing up, now I don't know what teachers get paid in Japan. I don't know if it's similar to how it is in America where teachers are just terribly underpaid, because I just took it as that and just assumed, oh, this is what she feels like she has to do to make ends meet. But I think she just does it just for the extra money. So yeah, also her ability is goated. The massages, dude. Next up in A tier I put was Akechi. Now, I think he's a really good character, and it might be a hot take seeing him just in A tier and not an S tier. I think that his VA did a great job. Just the way that he spoke, the way that he kind of had this attitude to him, I thought it was really good, personally, so I can always respect it. However, for me personally, I just have a personal, like, in real life bias against people that have that kind of condescending tone that he brought to the table. I think he's a really good character, so if you put Akechi as one of your all-time favorites, I wouldn't be mad. But I personally, in my heart, can't put someone like him in S tier, because if I knew someone like him in real life, he would piss me off to no end. So next up in A tier, I put Haru, and I feel like I should also put Makoto in the same sense, which I thought that they were just kind of like solid characters. I didn't think they were like bad or like underwhelming. I personally liked the two of them. Haru was a solid character. You know, she was really sweet, and she had those moments of courage, which were, you know, those were good. Makoto was similar to where she was very much someone who's very like, she was pretty much like the narc in the beginning until she awakened with her persona, and then she kind of started to like slowly become like a human, like an actual teenager, instead of this bootlicker that I just couldn't stand in the very beginning of her arc. So, you know, that's that. Next up we have Morgana, and I thought he was cute. I liked his interesting development. I thought the whole bit of him constantly saying he's not a cat, just for him to end up actually being a cat, is kind of funny. But he really felt like a true, like, companion, aside Joker. And I thought Morgana was sweet. He was a nice character. I have no problems with him. Moving on to S tier, I wanted to put Joker, our protagonist. Which is kind of funny because I initially thought, based on what I knew about Joker, which really was nothing except what he does in Smash, I fully thought that Joker was a silent protagonist with no personality aside from what the player gives him. It's kind of funny to see a protagonist, like a silent protagonist that has a personality. Because it's kind of funny because he feels less like a blank slate character and more like a quiet jokester, which, duh, it's in the name. To me, it's good that they managed to make a character as quiet as him surprisingly funny, and even the serious moments didn't feel cringe. Like, in my opinion, this is like my ideal goal of a protagonist, which is one that maybe can be on the quiet side but still have that personality. Like, he was still engaging. I'll never forget during the very first cutscene of Royal when he just says "see ya" to the police and just jumps through a whole panel of glass. I don't know why, that was just hilarious to me. Next up, I put Sojiro, which was, you know, he's an amazing father, and I loved his arc of pretty much this stern asshole of an owner to basically becoming a father of two. He ended up treating Joker like his own son, and he learned to kind of, you know, adjust his bond with Futaba after her palace, and, you know, I give them nothing but the best. Also, his ability, amazing. The curry went crazy. The coffee, stupid. Next up, I wanted to put Mark. I personally found his character really complex, but it kind of worked in his favor. I found him being like the true final boss as a really good idea, and his relationship with a lot of the characters, especially Sumire, was very interesting because it's basically because of him that we know Sumire is actually just playing as Kasumi and was never Kasumi, and Kasumi has been dead the whole time, and he's basically just been helping Sumire just cope, is basically what I've gathered from that. You know, Maruki's character was really interesting, and I like how, even though I guess he was the final antagonist, he was never really like a villain. I just kind of feel bad for the guy. He basically just dealt with this devastating tragedy and pretty much just discovered this power of, you know, mementos and whatnot, and just used it to just make this huge world of escapism, which kind of sad to see someone like him be so devastated. He wanted to live the rest of his life with no form of like negative trauma, which I can understand that. Yeah, it was just sad to see the man break down throughout that palace, man. So next up, and I'll put the both of them next to each other, is An and Ryuji, because I think the two of them were really, really sweet. I loved both of them as characters, and it's kind of funny because I really, really felt bad for An, because she really spoke to that, like, just stereotype of, like, I guess the pretty girl that's just constantly being hit on and just utilized by weird perverted dudes, which I found that sucks. I'm not gonna hold you, that's tough. That I do love how, like, basically she broke out of that shell of, like, I'm not just the pretty girl. I have a personality. I have skill. I'm strong, right? I can respect that. She was good. I liked her character. Ryuji is interesting because I'm gonna give y'all a weird hot take. I found him really fucking annoying in the beginning, and I did not like him. I'm not gonna hold you. He pissed me off a lot. But you know what? Over time, not just while you bond with him, but just throughout, I kid you not, I will always respect Ryuji because he literally, in the span of those 120 hours I was talking about, he would have started the game off as like a C tier character for me. But by the time we hit the end of Shido's palace, he was S tier. Ryuji's godlike to me. I ain't gonna hold you. In the very beginning, I couldn't understand why people were always spam quoting him and saying he was the best character in the game. I totally get it. Futaba was goated. She is like, I told my friends, I don't know what it was. Futaba just reminds me of myself when I was in like middle school, and also a little bit of me during the pandemic. She was just so antisocial. I feel like she had clear tendencies of like, I feel like they kind of tried to not use her, but she felt like a representation of like people who are just extreme introverts, and also maybe people who are more on that neurodivergent side of things, where she had very key interests and she was very passionate about the things she was interested in. And I'm not saying that's what neurodivergency is, but I'm just saying two separate things at the same time. I personally just loved her as a character. I loved her character arc, which, you know, that whole thing is good for her. From being this complete shut-in to being excited to go outside and go to high school, it's a beautiful arc, right? And it kind of reminds me of myself. I'm not gonna hold you, of how I was post-pandemic, where I went from this shut-in during the pandemic and after to someone who tries to be very social now that I'm in college. I'm not the most sociable, but you know, she's my favorite character. So moving on to gameplay, I had a great time. I personally love JRPGs. I've played most of my experience with JRPGs is honestly just gonna come from like playing Three Houses, and I guess Pokemon if you want to bring it. But like I like Pokemon is a JRPG, but like I don't know, it's a little different. So, anyways, basically all you need to know is I enjoyed the gameplay. The difficulty curve of the game was pretty fair. I didn't struggle playing the game. I will admit, I don't know why, but in the very, very beginning, I tried to get cocky and play on hard mode and basically got soft locked like halfway through Kamoshida's palace. And I was just like, okay, so we're not gonna do that again. I was like, you know what? I've played Three Houses before. Yeah, I'll play on hard mode, and got my shit wobbled literally within like the first 5 hours of gameplay. And I was like, nope, this is way too hard. And I swapped to normal mode. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't think the game was difficult. I do feel like maybe there were some battles I felt like took a little while, but like I was never like struggling. I think out of my entire 120-hour gameplay, I genuinely think I died like 2 times, and that was in the very, very beginning, because I told you I got like soft lock. Actually no, it's 3 times, because I got soft lock from one of the bosses in Kamoshida's palace playing in hard mode. I don't even know what happened. I just kept getting one shot, and I literally couldn't, even if I defended, I just kept getting one shot, and I was like, okay, so I'm not supposed to be doing this. I think, what did I end up doing? I think I died like twice, swapped to normal mode, and I didn't die again until I think I fought Dr. Maruki. And I don't remember, I think it was like in the very, not very last phase, but like I think I died in his fight because I just forgot to heal. Like I tried to get cocky and just kill him. I think what happened is I tried to get cocky and kill him, and then in doing so I just completely forgot that Joker was just low in HP, so I just choked. I will say I like the multi-element aspect. Like I do love how there were so many like elements that you had to fight with, and I initially thought it was going to be overwhelming, but you know, as time went on, you know, it becomes easier to kind of understand what enemies are weak to, especially with confidant abilities. They just made it just easier to know, okay, when to use fire, when to not use a nuke, when to use my gun attacks, when to use my melee attacks, which even the gun and melee attacks, I thought they were going to end up being like pretty much redundant, but they actually had some pretty decent uses in terms of like saving SP. Like there were definitely some times where, you know, I just didn't feel like wasting SP on an enemy, so I would just spam gun and melee attacks on them until they died, and it usually worked out just fine. I did not know this until one of my friends told me, because I ended up using, I guess, a DLC persona in Maruki's Palace. Yeah, almighty personas are broken. I found this loop while fighting Dr. Maruki the second time around, because that's where I died, and that loop basically was making me do like thousands. I think I was doing like 4,000-5,000 damage, probably more. I would end off on that final like blue baton pass, and if you don't know, you just do insane damage for 0 SP. If I ever play this game again on hard mode, I don't want to use that persona. That was so over. That palace was so easy because of that persona. To me, I saw a free persona and I was like, oh, I made it to level 90 or whatever. Oh, this is the game just rewarding me for making it this high. I thought this was just one of those things where it's like, oh, you're one of the, you know, it's so hard to reach this level. Here's your persona that's busted as hell for your hard work. I just took it as that. I didn't know that. After playing this game, I didn't realize how much people were like not using a lot of the Phantom Thieves. But like, I don't know, I don't know what it was, I just tried to use all of them pretty equally. Some were better than others, like I mentioned about Akechi and Sumire because of their late game appearance. Well, Akechi was still pretty strong in his admin, but Sumire was just kind of underwhelming. Same in my opinion with Haruka as well. She was kind of underwhelming in my opinion. But I generally tried to just rotate through using all of them fairly equally, so I didn't really have any problems with any of them in particular. So the next point that I wanted to bring up is the music. Now, I want to just say this. Obviously, I already mentioned in the very beginning how much I already kind of had some knowledge of Persona's music, but after beating the entire game and also having this inspire me to look at music from other Persona games like Persona 3 and 4, dude, the music in this game was so good. It had a massive emphasis on jazz, and they did it amazingly. There was a really good mix between just like smooth jazz and that like chaotic tone that the game also set itself for. Another thing I also wanted to say is I personally, the singer Lynn for this game, her voice was amazing, and I love how what they did for this game is that her vocals felt interchangeable. It didn't feel like her vocals were like unnecessary to any of the songs. If you put the instrumental version and the vocal version of the song and played them at the same time, her voice fit whatever instrument she was replacing perfectly. Or I guess whatever instrument tried replacing her, whichever came first. I thought it was beautiful, personally. And I love the music in this game. So I just want to talk about some of my favorite songs, personally. Life Will Change from, I think, Sai's Palace was really good. Last Surprise is a classic. I think anyone that's heard of a classic. And it's for a good reason. It's one of my favorites. What's another one? Beneath the Mask, Rivers in the Desert. And one of my personal favorites is I Believe. I think this is in Maruki's Palace. I guess because it's a royal song, people don't talk about it that much, but I Believe was really good. I'm surprised nobody was talking about it. And some other ones these are some that I personally felt were underrated, were Layer Cake and Ideal and Real. Layer Cake I think is EY's theme, like his shop theme, and Ideal and the Real was what was it? I think it was Maruki's. I don't think is that his palace theme? I actually don't remember. That's crazy. Whatever. All I know is Ideal and the Real is associated with Maruki. I forgot if it's his palace theme or something else. I'll be honest. But they were so... Oh my god. The music in this game is amazing. Tokyo Daylight, Butterfly Kiss, When My Mother Was There, which was Futaba's palace theme. The music in this game is good. Dude, after playing this game, I kid you not, I added like dozens and dozens of soundtracks from not only this game, but also Persona 3 and 4 to my Spotify playlist of video game music, because the music in this game is too good. good. My final thoughts with this game are mostly that I honestly want to try replaying it on the hardest difficulty, which I might want to actually give it a shot playing on like a new game plus and actually try it again on hard, just to see if it really is just that difficult or if I was just like bad in the beginning. I also wrote in my notes, it's kind of funny that when I was writing this a month ago, I had actually just booted up Persona 5X, and I'm gonna be so honest, that game was terrible. I'm gonna just be blunt, but I also don't like gacha games. The writing is just a complete joke, and for someone like me, going from playing Persona 5 Royal, which is probably like one of, if not the most favorited among Persona fans, to playing a gacha slop game was just a crazy whiplash. Yeah, that game was not fun. I did not enjoy it, and I stopped playing it after 3 days. I also forgot to mention that in addition to buying a Reload, I actually recently, like as I'm speaking, I actually bought Persona 3 Portable and Persona 4 Golden. So, by the way, those two games, dude, Atlas games go on sale all the time. As a quick side thing, dude, I got Portable and Golden for like 20 bucks combined. But besides the point, that basically means I own 4 Persona games. And I said before, if I enjoy all of them, or maybe if I don't enjoy some of them and I want to move on, I'm low-key thinking of playing like stuff like Metaphor and SMT, because I know that I've heard from a lot of people that Metaphor is a really good game, and SMT is like I heard it's also a pretty good series. It's not as popular as Persona, but it is also like a good RPG kind of thing. I've always said I wanted to get into more JRPGs. That's gonna do it for my thoughts on this game. As you can clearly tell, I personally loved it. If I had to give it a rating right now, I would give it like a 9.1 out of 10. I thought it was like hands down probably one of my favorite games I've played in years. Personally, it's up there. If you stuck through to the very end, I appreciate you. Thank you for your support. If you enjoyed the video, as always, leave a like, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell if you want to just keep yourself updated anytime I make new videos. Drink some water, tell a friend, and have a good one. Bye bye.